Hi guys, I'm Amy, and welcome to the Spill the Teeth podcast, where I spill the teeth on all things dentistry and a bunch of other fun things. Welcome to my first episode. So I want to start off the podcast always talking about the things that I did over this past week, because that's what I do over on my Instagram at Teeth and Crowns. Follow if you haven't already. But again, like I said in my trailer for this podcast, I can't talk about everything. So this gives me a chance to really elaborate further on what I've done. So before I do that, I want to give you a breakdown of all the classes that I'm taking this semester. So if you see me looking off screen for this, it's because I'm reading off a list of all the classes that I've taken. So I'm in Pharmacology 2, Dental Behavioral Science 2, Pediatric 3, Oral Medicine and Physical Evaluation, OMFS 1, Preclinical Endo, Hard Tissue Oral Pathology, Fix Prosthodontics 2, Perio 2, Removable Partial Dentures, Operative 3, Preclinical Radiography, Clinical Care, and Implants. So all of you keeping track at home, that's 14 classes. I know, a lot. So I don't want to belabor the point of what I did in every single class because I could talk about that for hours on end, but some of them are just, I go to class, I take notes, that's the end of the story. But one of the classes I want to talk about is removable partial dentures, or RPD. So if I say RPD, that is removable partial dentures. We are currently working on a simulated case of a Kennedy Class 2 Mod 1. So Kennedy is the classification we use for partial edentulosum. So that is a unilateral edentulous segment that has no teeth with one modification space, so another additional space that has no teeth. In that class, I made a custom tray for the teeth, and that took a lot longer than I thought it would. I was there over Sunday with my friend Emily. If you don't know who she is, at EB Dental AF. Go follow her. It took a lot longer, again, like I said, but it was merely my fault. I had a lot of modifications that if I had made it correctly the first time, I wouldn't have had to make the modifications. But it got done, got signed off, so there was that. In preclinical endo, I worked on x-raying real teeth because we need to get working lengths of the teeth for projects that are coming down the line. But I was working on the x-rays, and then this weekend I'm going to work on mounting some of the real teeth into a dentiform so I can simulate actually doing root canals on real teeth in the mouth, because surprise surprise, we cannot take our patient's maxilla or mandible out of their mouths during treatment. I'm not speaking for myself, or maybe that I am, that sometimes people do that, again, not me, in preclinic, just just because. Another thing that I did was assist in lab. We have a course called Clinical Care, and that's really prepping us to go into clinic over the summer, and also we do assisting in it. So we go into clinic and assist the D3s and D4s that are there. So I assisted for a rescanning of a patient's number 8 and number 9 preps, and that was kind of cool because we have been working on doing digital scanning in our fixed prosthodontics class, and I got to see it done in an actual patient. It's always nice when you go into clinic and do assisting and you see something that you've been working on pre-clinically, but you get to see it done on a real person. In operative dentistry, we are still working on our dentiform teeth. We will soon be working on real teeth, but for now we're working on dentiform teeth. And this week we were doing a practical for our practical next week, which is a number 2 and number 3 amalgam restoration. So number 2 has a MO and number 3 has a DOL. So we prepped the number 2 and number 3, or I prepped it last week and got it checked off. So we simulated the practical with the rubber dam and placing the amalgam restoration inside our mannequins. After restoring the number 2 and number 3 preps with amalgam, we then had to do a feedback sheet where we basically critique our own work and we give ourselves 1s or 0s on different type of criteria, and then we tally up the score, and then we take that to a professor who then looks at our work and does their own critique. In preclinical radiography, we were critiquing our x-rays that we took from weeks prior. So we had a full mouth series, or we're supposed to have a full mouth series, and we would critique our periapicals and bite wings that we took. Some of the x-rays that I took for the full mouth series were really good. Some of them were really bad. Some of them were in the middle. So we were supposed to self-critique those, and then our professor in the class went over them with us and gave a score for them. So with all the classes that I took over the week, I want to kind of do a quiz count. So the quiz count for this week was 7. So we had 7 quizzes. I think that spanned over operative, dental behavior science, pharmacology, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of quizzes. Quizzes are a good thing and a bad thing. Bad part of quizzes is that you have to study for the quizzes. The good part of quizzes is that it forces you to study, so you're not behind when it comes to exams. That was all the exciting things that I did this past week in dental school. I kind of want to do a good and the bad part of the week, just because, things happen, bad things happen, things that get us frustrated as dental students, and not even just as dental students, but also people outside of dentistry. But in acknowledging the sometimes bad things that happen, and not really bad, just annoying things or irritating things, I always think it's important to find the good, because you can always find something good in the midst of even a bad week. Maybe the sun was shining, maybe a class got canceled, stuff like that. Speaking about the good and the bad, this reminds me of a segment that my club that I was in undergrad did. It was called Hot or Not, so shout out to Mario if you're listening. So when we played Hot or Not, the not was a bad or annoying thing that happened during the week, and the hot was something good. So we're acknowledging things that go wrong, things that annoy us during the week, but we're also, on the flip side, we're trying to look for the good in the week. So here we go. Let's start with the not, because let's always start with the bad news first. The not was, it was too cold. I don't know where you guys are, where you're listening from, where you're watching from, but we got some cold weather this past week, and it was really, really cold on Monday and continued to be cold. And I don't know about you, but I don't like the cold. I wasn't born for the cold, I wasn't made for the cold. So that is the not for this week. The hot for this week was that I had a professor say that they were proud of me for doing a good job on the practice practical. So this was an operative, like I was talking about. We had to restore number 2 and number 3 with amalgam, and I think I did pretty well. I tend to do better with amalgam than composite. I know it's weird, but I do. I find it easier to work with. But after he was talking to me and we were talking about how I could make things better, he said that I did a really good job that day and that he was proud of me. And this is not me saying, oh, look at me, I did a good job, pat myself on the back. But if you knew me, you know that I am very, very hard on myself. So when I talked about self-critiquing our own work, that is a very slippery slope for me, because I tend to look at my stuff really, really hard, actually too hard, and be like, well, this looks like garbage, this looks like garbage, this is bad, and I tend to have a hard time finding good things in what I do, because I have high, almost impossible standards for myself, and that's something I can get into later on in different episodes, but it is something I find hard to do, is to be proud of the stuff that I do, even though I know that I work hard and people say, oh, Amy, you do such good work and blah, 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 but it is very hard for me to realize when I'm doing a good job, which makes it even more important when a professor sees the hard work that I'm putting in and tells me that I'm doing a good job. So that was the hot for this week. So that definitely was better than the cold for sure. Something that happened outside of dentistry that was also a hot was that this past weekend, which was a 3-day weekend for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, was that there was a little doggy at me and my roommate's house. We were dog sitting for a classmate for his dog, who was named Moose, and Moose is as cute as that name suggests, so I kind of took it easy over the weekend and kind of spaced my workout over 3 days so I could spend time with the dog. I guess for the first episode, since I don't really have anything else to talk about, I do have plans of what I can talk about outside of dentistry. I have a whole list of it, don't you worry. But I guess in true first episode fashion, I should do an intro about myself. And this is not going to be an exhaustive intro because I'm honestly not that interesting, so it's not going to take too long. One thing you should know about me is that I was homeschooled from 3rd grade to my senior year of high school, and I can just hear the questions now. Did you like being homeschooled? And I can honestly say yes, I love being homeschooled. And I know not everyone has a good experience or likes it, but I personally did, and I chose to be homeschooled throughout high school, even though a lot of my siblings who were homeschooled alongside with me wanted to go to the public high school. I started being homeschooled half day in 3rd grade, and then full time I was homeschooled from 4th grade on. I did go to the public school to play band because I am a band geek. I played clarinet, I still do, not as often as I would like to, but I still can play the old licorice stick, as people call the clarinet. I was in band in middle school and all throughout high school, and in high school I went to do marching band and the symphonic band, and I also went to the local high school to do driver's ed program. Because it's kind of hard to homeschool throughout college, I went to the local community college, College of DuPage. Shout out to anyone who's been there. Love that school. And I first was pursuing dental hygiene, but then switched my second year and pursued an associate's in science to be able to get a bachelor's in science. And that is something that I want to get into, the switch between dental hygiene to dentistry, but that is for a different episode. After I got my associate's in science at the College of DuPage, I then transferred to North Central College in Naperville, and there I got my bachelor's in biomedical science. I was a super senior, so I was there for 3 years after my 2 at COD, and I graduated, and then the rest is history. I got into SIU SDM, and now I am a D2 student. Now that I've spilled the tea, I want to give you all something as food for thought. So I found this quote by Thomas Edison that says, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." And I think that's really important, it says something a lot about hard work, but also not giving up. Well, I guess that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Whether you watched or listened to it, I thank you. If you have any questions for me or topics that you would like me to talk about, whether it's in dentistry or not related at all to dentistry, please let me know. Leave a comment. You can DM me on my Instagram at Teeth and Crowns, or, send a carrier pigeon my way. I will for sure answer the questions. I really hope to drop these episodes weekly so I can get you my weekly review and that I can just talk about things not related to dentistry. This was fun for me. Kind of reminds me that, hey, I do have a life outside of dentistry. Go figure. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for spilling the tea with me, and I'll see you in the next episode.